Bridges are supposed to get you safely from one place to another, but terrifyingly, some bridges are just not as stable as they should be. Or horrifying for other reasons. These are the 20 scariest bridges in the world. Number 20. Danyang Kushan Grand Bridge. We'll begin with a bridge that is indeed scary, but is also a vital part of China in a major way, the Danyang Kushan Grand Bridge. Many people may be surprised to learn that this bridge is actually part of the Beijing-Shanghai high-speed railway. Previously, it would take 4.5 hours to travel to 2 different places that I'm not about to try and pronounce via public transport, but that's been slashed to just 2 hours as a consequence of this bridge. Part of the reason for this is that the track and bridge is over 100 miles long. The bridge is around 100 feet from the ground with a span of 260 feet. So it's tall, wide, and it's able to withstand a massive train being upon it. And to give you better context of just how incredibly massive this bridge is in terms of its construction, the journey of the bridge takes in canals, rivers, lowland rice paddies, lakes, and uneven terrain, as well as major towns and cities. That's a lot of things you need to both plan around and through in order to get to the destination that's intended. Oh, and it also cost about $8.5 billion with a B to make, which is not exactly a small thing. So why is it scary then? Well, as you can see in some of its pictures, it's hovering over water at some points, and if a derailment were to happen there, rescue would be almost impossible. Furthermore, while having a 100-mile bridge track like this is cool on an engineering level, that's a very big risk factor as time goes on because it cannot be easy to look over and maintain that bridge. But for now, at least, we can all revel in the engineering marvel. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. Now it's time for the sweet topic. Here we have not one, but 2 bridges that have to be terrifying to drive on. The one on the left is the Ashima-Ohashi Bridge, and as you can see, it goes very high and at an incredibly awkward incline. The one on the right is a design for something that Japanese designers who look to build is something of a loop for supercars. Both are terrifying, don't you think? As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below using the hashtag #SweetTopic. Number 19. Kawaru Bridge. Constructed in the 1800s, the Kawaru Bridge is a suspension bridge in New Zealand, and it allows for crossing over the Kawaru River to get to central Otago goldfields. So in other words, a very important bridge. But there's another monumental moment with this bridge that we've not yet touched upon. That's that the bridge just so happens to be the birthplace of bungee jumping. In fact, it was actually the first commercial bungee jumping site in the entire world, not the thing that you may have expected from a bridge, but not only was it the first, it's still going on today. So if you wanted to be a part of history, you could go to this bridge and take a jump for yourself just to see what it feels like, or not, you could stay on your couch like I'm going to. And that brings me to the scariness of this bridge. Due to it being a suspension bridge, it has a different kind of support system than the pillar bridge that we had last entry. While suspension bridges are perfectly capable of doing all that bridgey kind of stuff, that doesn't mean that they don't have certain vulnerabilities that could be exploited should the time come. Not to mention, look at the positioning of the bridge. If something were to go and happen, the phrase "long way down" would be apt one to use here. Oh, and that's not even mentioning the risk of the bungee jumping. While we're confident in their abilities, all it takes is one bad chord and splat. Or in this case, perhaps splash. Number 18. The Royal Gorge Bridge. Standing 959 feet above the wild Arkansas River, the Royal Gorge Bridge is the highest suspension bridge in the United States and also once held the record of highest bridge in the world from 1929 until 2001, when it was surpassed by another bridge in China. Well, easy come and easy go, as they say. What may surprise you, though, is that despite the size of this bridge, it technically didn't take that long to get made. Not to mention, it was constructed in 1929 and only took about 6 months to build. Talk about a fast labor movement. While its translation value in terms of building it would be in the millions, back in 1929 dollars, it would only have been about $350,000, showing you the true difference between then and now. But here's another twist for you. Unlike most bridges that you'll see on this list, this one was not made to be a helper in terms of travel or even getting to a hard-to-reach place. Rather, this bridge was made as a tourist attraction. It also helped the traffic to get people to nearby amusement park, so you could say that the whole area was built for entertainment purposes. And if you still don't believe us on that front, there are only certain times that you can use the bridge and in certain ways that you can enter it because other paths to it are closed off. Larger vehicles like trucks won't even be allowed. And one could very easily argue that this is the true reason that it's on this list, because it's not meant to handle every vehicle and arguably isn't the best kind of bridge to begin with, as it's a tourist trap more than anything else. Plus, have you seen that gorge that it goes over? Number 17. Trift Bridge. The Trift Bridge is a pedestrian-only suspension bridge in the Swiss Alps that spans nearly 600 feet, and while the views are absolutely stunning to those that are upon it, you might feel like one stray gust of wind could leave you plummeting, which immediately makes it worthy of this list. At 100 meters high and 170 meters long, it's poised above the region of the Trift Glacier, making it the perfect spot for people to come and take in the sights, the danger, and the overall presence of Switzerland. One could argue that the true danger of the bridge lies in the places that are around it, and by that I mean that just to get to the bridge, you have to do a 1.5 hour hike, which also means that you'd have to do that same hike back to where you came from. So the term outdoor adventure would be a fair depiction of getting to be a part of this bridge. The other reason that we cite the surrounding area of the bridge as dangerous, and not just the bridge, is that it's ever-changing. And by that, I mean global warming. In 2004, a suspension bridge was put up in this area to tie it to the Thrift Glacier, but over time, global warming made it so that the bridge couldn't reach its destination. Thus, in 2009, the new Trift Bridge would be made, and other avenues were applied to ensure that they got to where they wanted to go. But if it could shift once, perhaps it could shift again. Number 16. Lake Pontchartrain Causeway. The Lake Pontchartrain Causeway is a bridge that honestly speaks for itself in terms of the dangers that it could possess to the people who may be upon it, as well as why it was needed in the first place. You see, in the earlier days of New Orleans, when the city was growing at a rapid rate, this was something that literally divided the northern and southern parts of the city. Getting from north to south, or vice versa, was a hassle due to the lake, and that's a fair thing to build a bridge upon. However, the problem? Well, the bridge is about 24 miles long, and you must be willing to cross it in one shot, or else deal with a whole plethora of problems. The bridge is so long that motorists actually lose sight of land for an 8-mile stretch, and drivers have been known to freeze out of some kind of false seaborne fear, at which point the police have had to escort them off the bridge. Believe it or not, there have even been babies that are born on the bridge, as mothers-to-be are driven on it, but don't make it to the hospital in time, and thus they end up having the baby in their car. You might think that would deter people from coming to it, but it's not true. In fact, people took it in droves, and they even had to expand the bridge by 50 feet later on. Still though, this bridge is not for everyone, and as a result of that, it's dangerous if you're not familiar with it, or you just don't know if you can make it to the full 24 miles on the bridge itself. Number 15. Hanging Bridge, Montenegro Rainforest. Now we head to the country of Costa Rica, where a very unique bridge awaits you for better and for worse, because here they want you to explore places like the Montenegro Rainforest, and to do that, you have to have a truly up-top experience, where they've built various hanging bridges to help you walk amongst the trees. These have become very easily one of their biggest tourist attractions, and many people like to walk on these bridges. In truth, it's not really hard to see why, because if they go and do that, they can see incredible views in and amongst the trees that they won't get anywhere else, or at least nowhere that's close. Plus, it also allows you to be in the forest without actually having to be in the rainforest, which, as we all know, is full of bugs and other things that no one wants on them ever. So where's the danger? Well, they are known as hanging bridges for a reason. They're hanging onto something and thus dangling you above the ground in ways that many would say are precarious. Not to mention, if something were to happen to one of these bridges, the consequences could be rather disastrous. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't partake in these bridges, oh, far from it, but you'll want to make sure that you're doing the right thing, holding on to where you need to, and not chancing fate by dangling yourself over the side. Number 14. Carrick-a-Reddy Rope Bridge. The rope bridge at Carrick-a-Reddy was first erected by fishermen more than 250 years ago. They fished for Atlantic salmon, and for a long time, a flourishing industry marked the place. But now, it's a bridge that's more of a tourist attraction where people can actually go to get a nice view of Ireland. All it's going to take is for you to go on a rope bridge that you might feel is a little bit sketchy. After all, I'm not kidding that this is a well and true rope bridge that connects to points that are basically rocks. The videos that you can find about this bridge show you exactly how high it is and how much fun it can be to go on, while also being very dangerous in its own right. Now, for some of you out there, you might not exactly care how dangerous it is because you're going to be in Ireland, likely in great weather, and have a great view, and then have all the rest of Ireland to go and explore afterwards. In the end, though, it's up for you and your adventurous spirit to see if this bridge is for you. Number 13. Kinhazy Double Helix Bridge. Now, first off, I understand that I probably mispronounced that word. Oh well, that's the nature of life. Behold this bridge, the world's longest concrete tubular bridge, built to stand 2,500 meters above sea level, and it's 1,811 meters long, 24.5 meters wide, and has 36 bridge spans. That's a lot. And a lot of information. It's the first bridge to use steel fiber concrete as structural material, and that makes it an important part of China's first high-speed double helix tunnel through the mountainous Yazi Expressway of Yan City, southwest of China's Sichuan province. And while it's fair to say that I probably mangled a bunch of those words, China did need to build this bridge in order to help them on their roadways. You should know that the bridge also has a very curious nickname of being a roller coaster, and it's not really hard to see why. After all, you're going to be cranking your wheel in one direction or another depending on which direction you're going on in the bridge itself. It's got to be a job on your neck to not just go on this thing, but to keep going on it over and over again. Now, objectively, is the bridge a feat of technology? Well, yes, it is. Making a bridge of this kind is not exactly easy, and as I outlined earlier, there was a lot that went into a bridge of this size. So, we should absolutely be able to appreciate this feat of engineering. But if you were to go on this bridge, you have to be cautious, or else you're going to be in trouble and possibly fly off of a very roundabout bridge, and I don't want that for you. Number 12. Ubine Bridge. Going across a lake in Myanmar, the Ubine Bridge might look like just another rickety wooden crossing, which it is, but this historic span is actually made of the remains of a royal palace, which makes it pretty epic in its own right. Construction on the wooden bridge would be completed in 1851 after 3 years. The bridge was built on a slight curve, and it's supported by over 1,000 wooden pillars that were hammered into the bottom of the shallow lake. One can only wonder how labor-intensive that was, as they'd have to make sure every single pillar was rooted in place and couldn't move before they went on to the next one. Not to mention moving the pillars from wherever they were before to the lake, putting them upright, and then hammering them in. And then after one of them was complete, you had to go and do the next one. Reaching 3/4 of a mile in length, the ramshackle span is surprisingly long for a wooden bridge with no rails, further adding to its danger. But do you think that gets the tourists to stay away from it? Not a chance. In fact, this is one of the more popular Myanmar tourist attractions. Apparently, the bridge at night is actually rather pretty to take pictures of. The catch with this is that because it was wood, it's been around for 170 years, it's gotten a lot of wear and tear on it. Some of the wooden pillars that I mentioned earlier actually had to be replaced with concrete. So the bridge isn't the safest, just make sure that you know that as you walk upon it. Number 11. Monkey bridges. In Vietnam, you'll find what's called a monkey bridge. These walkways have been built across rivers or gullies to help you pass, but you won't see any modern feats of architecture on these structures. There are no sturdy metals or hard concrete, and you can bet that they're not OSHA approved. Yes, you heard that right, no modern materials in these bridges, which already screams that they're dangerous, because most people want to know that there are sturdy materials under their feet, but you're not exactly going to have that here. These bridges often consist of just one piece of log and have only one handrail, causing crossers to hold out one arm for balancing. But sometimes these monkey bridges might not even have a handrail at all, so that's not something that a lot of you would even want to cross. But I do need to note that unlike a lot of bridges I've spoken about before, these kinds aren't meant to be crossed by large vehicles or the like. This was meant to be for those crossing rivers in Vietnam that wouldn't have gotten roads or bridges to cross them otherwise. As for why they're called monkey bridges, nobody really knows. The most common belief is that because of how the bridges were built, you had to be agile like a monkey to be able to cross them, which is a bit insulting, but also further showcases exactly how dangerous the bridges can be if you're not careful. The government is slowly replacing the monkey bridges throughout Vietnam with concrete structures, and that's probably for the best, because there are easier and better ways to make small bridges to cross rivers and such. Number 10. Root bridges. And if you thought the last entry was a bit nuts in terms of the materials that were used for the bridge, allow me to take you to India. Once a bamboo structure has been stretched across the river, the roots of the tree, usually the rubber tree, are teased and manipulated to become entwined with the bamboo until it becomes a strong mesh. So it may seem like a fair thing to do since it's a strong mesh, but trust me, it's a whole lot more complicated than that. The roots are allowed to grow gradually and strengthen over time. In the initial stages, only about 15 to 20 people can cross a bridge in one day. That means it's dangerous to be one of the first people to walk across the bridge, and that's not a good thing at all. It can take up to 2 decades for a living roots bridge to be finished. Just think about that. Some of these modern bridges that we've talked about were built in months or even a few years, and they're still around today with only minimal risk. But this, if it's not made from 20 plus years ago, you might possibly be in trouble. The irony of it all is that the bridges have actually been submitted to UNESCO so that they can be honored and preserved, and I'm fine with that so long as I'm not asked to walk across them. Number 9. Taman Nagara Canopy Walkway. At this point, you can't help but wonder, are people honestly trying with bridges? Observe the canopy walkway that you'll find in Malaysia. It spans the width of one single person, but this walkway is one that's 1,700 feet long. A single wooden plank, some metal meshing, and a crisscrossed rope is all that holds you above a tangled mess of tree branches that you would fall through on your way down. Which for the record would be over 100 feet in terms of how far you drop like a stone. So hopefully you see how dangerous it is, but just in case you don't, we'll spit some more details at you. The canopy walkway is under full supervision of the Wildlife Department. Rules and regulations are imposed to ensure the safety of the tourists, and just think about that one for a moment. This is a bridge that's so potentially dangerous that it has to have people supervising it just to make sure that something doesn't happen to anyone who goes on it. And yet, people do walk on it freely and happily. Number 8. Hanging Bridge of Gaza. I have to admit, it's nice going across the world to talk about the various kinds of bridges you'll find in all these different countries, and this time we're going to Nepal, where you'll find the Hanging Bridge of Gasa. This very narrow bridge is located at a great height above a river that runs beneath it. However, it was built not only for people to cross, but also the very important cattle that the country's people ferry across the bridge. So on one hand, it's clearly sturdy enough to handle cattle, but on the other hand, it's very high up there, and it's known to have a lot of wind gusts, which puts those on the bridge very much on edge. Even so, I have to say, they did make this bridge to last, and while it did look a little fragile, it's held up so far. Number 7. Suspension Glass Bridge. Yes, you heard that one right. This is a bridge that has glass on it, and that glass is not on the sides of the bridge, rather it's what you walk on. The glass bridge is located in a geological park in China, and it has glass plates that allow you to see hundreds of feet at the ground below. But why would anyone want to see the pit in which they could potentially fall to their death in if the glass breaks? Nobody knows, but I also don't want to know why things like the spork or the Kardashians were invented, so why should we try to predict this one? There's a twist or two in here. Despite the haunting view, the bridge as the park was actually overrun with people when it first opened, to the extent that they feared having too many, so they had to shut it down and make improvements for the next run. It seems to have worked, but we wouldn't want to push our luck, nor do we want to look down on this bridge. Number 6. Eshima Ohashi Bridge. Take a look at the Eshima Ohashi Bridge. What do you think? If you think there's no way that's safe, then you'd be one of many who would be hesitant to go on the roller coaster bridge of Japan. The construction of this bridge was initiated in 1997, and the vision for it was because the people who made it tried to make sure that it would be able to allow trade ships safe passage on the lake below. And if you're curious as to how high it actually gets, it's a 144-foot ascent to the top, and then you have to go down, which is fun. But there are more twists here, which includes how there are actually paths on the bridge for people to walk or bike up and down. There's another level of danger there. But sometimes you just have to wonder what people are thinking when they make stuff. Number 5. Keshwashaka Bridge. The Keshwashaka Bridge, which spans across the river in Peru, has the distinction of being built with only braids of grass. Yes, I wish I was making this one up, but I'm not. Now, if your first thought is there's no way that that's strong enough to handle anything, you're technically wrong. Grass on its own is not strong enough to support much, but when you take thin strands and then braid them, they can be as strong as other things. In fact, Mythbusters once made rope out of toilet paper and human hair. Also, it should be noted that the bridge isn't one that's meant to last a long time. In fact, they actually replace it every single year in June, which is frankly a lot of work, and yet that's what they do. Oh, and for those who wouldn't want to risk it, there's a more modern bridge that's available for you to trek on should you feel the need, and I'm definitely riding on that one. Number 4. Iya Kazurbashi Bridge. Now, I'll be fair to you, there are many bridges on the list that are honestly safer than they appear, and the only real danger is if something really bad or fluky happens, but for this particular bridge in Japan, you might be the cause of your own demise. Because look not at the bridge as a whole, but at the panels that make up where you walk. Do you notice anything? Yes, the planks that make up the walkway are spaced out. Some are only a few inches, but others are almost a foot apart in length, and that means that if you take one wrong step, you could seriously hurt yourself or worse. There are railings to hold on to, but does that really matter when you might trip and go splat? Number 3. Ai Petri Bridge. If you want to see an on-steroids version of the last bridge, well, here you go. This one is in Ukraine, and it's one that's almost daring you to not hold on for dear life as you cross. Because as you can see, it's easily one of the most bare bones kinds of bridges out there. Ropes, wooden planks, and that's just about it. Oh, and did I mention it's over a 4,000-foot canyon? What's that? What about the wind? Well, they're known to whip up into a frenzy at times, and that means that the bridge is going to move and shake around. Number 2. Captain William Moore Bridge. This bridge in Alaska is easily one of the most dangerous around by default, and by that I mean literally default, as in the Captain William Moore Bridge in Alaska is built across a fault line. To be clear, the engineers did know the risk of this and ensured that the bridge was routed in such a way that would ensure that if an earthquake did occur, the bridge would not be ripped out of the mountain. But when a whole bridge is shaking, do you really think that matters? Number 1. Hussaini Hanging Bridge. The Hussaini Hanging Bridge is one that you'll find in Pakistan, and it holds the literal title of most dangerous bridge in the world. Should I just let the pictures speak for themselves? Your eyes are not deceiving you. This is a bridge that has an uneven walkway that's full of planks that aren't even really planks. They're just random pieces of wood. Also, the rails, well, they're rusted out, and yet for some reason people are more than willing to cross the bridge, if for no other reason than to test their nerves and their skills. You do that, and I'll basically do anything else. That's all from the realm of really scary bridges. Have you actually been across or near one of these on the list? And do you think that having a fear of some of these bridges is a little illogical? What do you think the scariest bridge you've ever been on is? Let me know all about it in the comments below. Be sure to check out the other cool stuff showing up on the screen, and I'll see you next time.